and welcome to our June 1st baseline show, where we have Boris Breslav joining us today, active baseline community member who has made significant contributions in a few different ways, from development to outreach efforts. And Boris recently went to Lendit FinTech in New York City last week on behalf of the baseline protocol and spoke to all sorts of companies and people in the space about baseline finance and all sorts of things. So Boris is joining us today to recap and tell us some more about the event. Hello, Boris.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, I'll share with my page so that we could kind of follow the keynotes I attended and some of the names, some of the discussions I had. I have some more details right in front of me, so I'll be kind of doing a bit of cheating here just to make sure we include all the details. So
awesome.
Let's do that.
So just in general, what was the event like? It was in New York City. Was it a pretty busy area?
It was huge. It was big. They said they expect about 4,000 participants. I think there were more. Like the keynotes were basically packed. The fireside chats. It was in Jacob Javits, so it's pretty big. The venue itself is huge. The fireside chats, like a lot of them, they were standing room only, so it was very, very busy. A lot of the banks were there. Like I think most of the banks were probably there. A lot of fintech companies. I'm not sure how many booths were there, but it was a couple. I think it was like over 300 maybe.
Wow.
I'm not sure. Like it was huge. It was literally on multiple occasions. I felt like there were multiple fireside chats going on at the same time, and I felt like it would be great if someone else would have been there and we could have kind of attended multiple sessions. I had to kind of prepare myself and make decisions. Where should I be? Like what is and so if there are any questions, stop me, or you want me to discuss anything in detail, I'll definitely do if I can. So the big like a lot of the discussions and the keynotes were around customer, which is and specifically individual customers and small businesses. A lot of the fintechs definitely made huge inroads with connecting with the customers, especially over like COVID and the pandemic and so on, and the small businesses which needed a lot of help. And it seems like now the larger corporations, financial institutions are looking to kind of like catch up there. That was definitely like a theme that you could kind of feel almost in every session I attended. So what I'll do, I'll just go through. I have the list of keynotes and fireside chats here that I attended. I'll go through and I'll touch upon some key points that were brought up there. And some of the companies, there are like a lot of different companies here. So I literally, after I went, I had to do a bit of research on who they are, what they do. But there was a large number of like just small, relatively small, not very small. It wasn't like 2-3 people companies. They were like, looks like hundreds and some of them thousands of employees that work for these companies. So the keynote, actually the mayor of New York was there. He was there for the first like 5 minutes and he thanked everyone. They said they will have the same event next year, which is great. Everyone was happy about it. He asked people to spend everyone there. It looked like there were a lot of outside of city, or like basically a lot of people not from New York directly. So he asked everyone to spend money in New York. So that was pretty much his. And then he was very happy. I mean, he talked about blockchain. He was very happy that the way things look in New York City, as far as from technology perspective. So the first keynote was with Chris, who is the CEO of Chime, and it's. I don't know if anyone knows anything about it, but it's a financial technology company that does have a relationship with a few banks, but they have basically a banking app, and as I understand, basically said it's the most downloaded banking app in the US. They're working with clients, like individual clients. They're also working at small businesses. And I didn't have a chance to approach Chris. He kind of like, he was on stage, then he left. I didn't see him on the floor or anywhere else. But it did look potentially there could be an opportunity as far as like synchronization of the data between his organization and potentially the smaller businesses. And I'll get a bit more into it later in detail because I was able to discuss it with like other participants there, CEOs that they do something similar, or like they basically lend out money. And he presented his company, Chris, as a social community focused company, and it sounded like they're doing extremely well. They have over 1,000 employees for a startup. It's like for financial startup. Sounded to be very successful. Then the next keynote was, the keynotes were pretty short. They were most of them about 20 minutes. It wasn't like a huge discussion. The next keynote was by Swati Gupta, and what I found here interesting, that she's the head of consumer proprietary business, and what Goldman Sachs did, I mean, I believe Marcus is being owned, or they have a very close relationship with Goldman Sachs, but they started opening up checking accounts, which is kind of unusual for like an investment bank to do, but they're looking for that as an entry into basically bringing a lot more individual customers into the picture. And they started with that. They basically, and that's checking accounts for customers, basically individuals, small businesses. They started a partnership with GM and Apple. So yeah, that's kind of like, that was this keynote. Now the next one. Okay, the next one was keynote. Can the financial service replicate the Amazon financial services company replicate the Amazon experience? So here we had Sarah for Mastercard, Aaron for HSBC, and Mike for on Fido. And this discussion was around quite a bit of it was about identity. And Mastercard, basically, all of them discussed how to make the client experience basically easier and basically to improve the client experience, especially in the digital space. Basically that was kind of like most of the discussion. I mean, right now they said that like it takes to onboard a client, it might take to, in some terrible scenarios, it takes 120 clicks online to actually bring somebody on board. And they're saying like the scenario, basically the number of clicks, an acceptable scenario is around 24 clicks. And they are attributing a lot of it to basically identifying who the client is and so on. So I did reach out to Sarah Clark here. I had like after the keynote, actually she was in a few keynotes and some firesides. So I reached out to her and I discussed the baseline a bit because there were one of the let me see. One of the scenarios they were discussing layered identifications, which basically have a government ID, you have the university ID, maybe you have some other IDs, and how do you basically bring them all together? So I thought potentially there is obviously there is privacy here, and potentially some synchronization as far as like as far as IDs. And I talked to her, I did speak to her about baseline protocol a bit, and she said she basically agreed that we can reach out and potentially she can participate. Maybe she can join us to discuss it. She had definitely a lot to bring from the identity perspective, and she was I mean, persona perspective was discussed very much from like basically a persona for payments, a persona as an investor, a persona as a credit card, which is basically different use cases and which is required for basically for the I guess the identification and so on. Any questions? Anything?
Yeah, Boris.
Yes.
Boris, with that conversation with the SVP of digital identity at Mastercard, right, and all these other financial people, how do you step in and explain Baseline to them for their financial use cases, and what sticks out to them as a valuable part of the protocol when you are explaining it to them?
As we'll get a little further, I mean, when I saw scenarios where there is potentially there was a privacy, there is data that a client might not want to share actually with a bank, not necessarily a bank, maybe like a fintech, and they want synchronization. That's where I would bring it up, because right now what I did is like a lot of them just use plain APIs, and they go out after clients and say, give me all the data like on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And they potentially, because they're dealing with so many small businesses and clients, they are doing this for like, I don't know, hundreds of clients all the time. They pump data back and forth. And so that's how that's where I was like, I was reaching out to them when I saw scenarios like that. The digital identity, I was a bit, when I saw the layering, I thought potentially if you have layer IDs, I mean, later on, what I saw that there is also reusability of IDs came up as a term, which I was familiar with the process or the steps themselves, but when I saw reusability, I didn't quite understand exactly what it was, and I realized basically if you create your footprint, your ID in one location, like in one part of the system, or like for one fintech, you don't want to do it over again for another fintech, or maybe another part of a system. If you're looking at if you're creating your ID for, like, I don't know, for checking account, and then you're creating one for your credit cards, you would want the identification to be reused, so you don't have to enter all the details again. I thought there are opportunities there also, because I thought that would be an excellent case for a baseline protocol to step in potentially. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I hope I was not, but that's kind of like what I was looking for, and that's what I've seen yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see what. Okay, the next one was file chat, the identity hot seat. So that again was Mastercard and Proof. Let me see what. Okay. So Proof, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the company, because they were pretty new to me too, but they're helping streamline customer acquisition and professional services and so on. So they discussed, there was a detailed discussion here. Like, again, this was around identity, client identity, and what was discussed here, that phones, basically, or SIM cards, are being used extensively for to identify like clients, and basically to kind of control their own identity. And I don't know, the number came up that 84% of population, I'm not sure if it's United States or worldwide, have a phone. So it is an approach that fintechs and banks are using, and that's where they're considering that for reusable identity, because you kind of like, you have the identity on the phone, like anywhere you log in with it, or you utilize your phone, you don't have to re-enter the information and so on. Okay, so that's that kind of continue on that. Okay, second. No, I think what I did. Oh no, okay. Actually, here I'll let me. Yes, okay. So this was a very this was a very interesting fireside chat. I thought was something that we should potentially like can be considered for a baseline protocol. And so Landio, I also reached out to this fellow blog CEO of Landio. They're basically providing loans to small businesses, and they've provided so far 12 billion plus of loans to small businesses, and they're looking at, I'm not sure how long they've been in business, but they have 75 over 75 lenders in the network, and some of them are banks, and looks like they're like growing tremendously. They're actually the largest small business lender in I would think it's in the US. And what they were this is one of the organizations I saw what they do, because they're trying to streamline their business, and to make it more effective, efficient, and so on, because they're connecting to banks and they're connecting to many small businesses. And what they do basically with the small businesses, they need to understand the financial situation in great detail. So right now they basically pull a lot of data from the financial institutions, or like the small businesses, and before they provide like basically a loan to them, they request a lot of like invoices, payments, basically every little detail from a small business. So I approached Brock and I asked him, like, are they giving you this information? Are they willing to provide that information as a small business? And he said they do, but he thought when I explained to him what the baseline protocol could do, he was interested to hear more about it. Actually, I was not able to reach him right after the fireside, but I did this after on the floor. He was kind of sitting there with his team, and I was able to talk to him. So they also talked about connecting data, which is not something, I guess, a connection of data and categorizing the data and building all the correlations which they need to do in some cases, or like in some scenarios. But he was interested, of potentially the smaller businesses basically providing certain thresholds or maybe verifications that do have the basically the earnings and so on, without actually providing a lot of details, specifically how many invoices and so on. Because the way he described it, they have APIs like left and right for at this point they're doing business with. Anything on this, Mark? Does this kind of like?
No, that sounds like a great use case. Privatizing the like the accreditation process there. That's an exciting conversation. We should definitely reach out to them.
Yeah.
And engage their interest.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed to he seemed to be very he seemed to be open to discuss it, and also he had a colleague that she was there. Actually, Donata, she was talking about it. They were very excited about it. Yeah. Okay. Now, okay, I'll move to the next one. So here is actually how to build a risk department for the future. So here is another perspective, which I think, like in this case, that was discussed. But I think doing any risk, you need some of the data. You probably need quite a bit of detailed data. So, but that could be like a different perspective that that they took here. So. Okay. Yeah, I don't have actually. Yeah, they basically they discussed in detail like how they will how they need to basically monitor and capture the data.
Say, Boris, down there, the why the future of payments will be blockchain based.
Yes.
Oh well, Mike Cagney was on there. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But
we'll get to it in a minute. Yes.
All right. Okay. I'm mystified by that.
Oh yeah, I was kind of too, and there wasn't like it was a keynote. I think it was a fireside chat, but yeah.
I mean, maybe after Matter Labs and Aztec, go full on, scaling with ZK, with privacy and scaling. But then, I mean, really what you're doing is just pushing all that back off onto traditional systems, and the blockchain is just
actually
recording proofs. Hey, I just don't understand I don't understand how payments can be blockchain based. I mean, real, actual, high throughput, high velocity transactions can be.
What they said,
unless we're not dealing with blockchains anymore, but just calling it blockchain.
They thought about it. I think there were like a few banks. Yeah, there were two banks actually participating. They thought that the cost to the merchants, which is 3% today, will be reduced. Some studies they did or research, I'm not sure if they said it'll be reduced probably like 1%. And their thought
I was moving $50 in ETH from one thing to another, and it cost me $50 in ETH. Mm-hmm. So that's 100% fee. Mm-hmm. And even on L2s, it can be the popular ones are getting to be into the easily could go on that. The reason that credit cards and other payments are 2%, 3% is because the banks and the others can charge that, not because the technology requires it.
Right.
Yeah. So why would you go from a system where if people just decide to charge you less, they can, because the technology is marginally zero cost, or close to it, versus a system that will always be marginally high cost? I don't get it.
Well, because again, they want to keep it that way, especially if you're using large amounts, if you're moving large amounts of money. Everybody wants, all of the banks, want to make sure that movement is accounted for and, validated and cleared.
You want to baseline all those traditional system transactions, but why do you want to actually run the payments themselves on a blockchain?
Because of the large payloads. I mean, if you want to move $5 million, you really have, unless you want to, pay the huge fees on the Swift network and whatever banks are going to be grabbing their, few breadcrumbs here and there.
Which are also marginally zero cost to do. The fees are policies.
Yes.
The fees are policies. When we were in the telecom industry, we just dropped our fees when we saw IP telephony coming. Set IP telephony back 10 years. You see what I'm saying?
Right. But if you want to move $5 million, I mean, the 2-3%, costs on all that adds up.
Sure, I get that, but right now that's what mainly is happening. But it says payments. I assume that doesn't mean just gigantic payments.
Right. But gigantic payments is where all of that friction comes to the front, as far as the fees and stuff, to say, look, I'm sending $5 million to a counterparty that I normally will send, $5,000 to. It's just right now we had a large transaction. They won't let you do that. And so you have two ways.
But why won't they let you do it? Is it the technology, or is it is it cross-country regulation and
it's risk,
and right?
It
and
is
risk and yeah. Okay, so how is a different technology going to change? Aren't we just going to have to reinvent all of the same regulation and stuff that because
no, because what it is it's basically you're allowing transfer with settlement finality almost immediately. And so right now, if you want to move $5 million to somewhere across the world, you have two ways of doing it. You can actually pay the fees and actually do it, or
correspondent banking.
Print it out, put it in a plane, and fly it yourself. When you start using large payments and stuff, they want to be very careful with it because that could be used, for shady purposes. I mean, I could see drug dealers wanting to move.
Well, exactly. So that's what I mean by reinstituting the same regulations. I get the point about finality, of course, especially if you're dealing with a global cryptocurrency as opposed to a fiat, right? Because the minute you go back to fiat, you're back to the same problem.
Right.
So yeah, if I want to pay you $5 million or $500 million in Bitcoin, I can do that for a marginal fee that is very small given 500 million, but now I'm in Bitcoin, and there are reasons why with fiat currency, I don't want you to just get that immediately because you might be a bad guy, right? So now we have to deal with that.
Well, and that's what the KYC was meant to, and AML was trying to, get ahead of that and stuff. But as far as, that's where I see so many people, that are talking about improving the payment rails and making them blockchain based, but you really have not, seen the needle move too much because, again, banks, of course, are very risk averse, especially when you're dealing with the plumbing and the medium in which they actually transact and everything. So they want the Swift network and they want the clearing aspect of it because that way they can at least have a control over the risk instead of just letting the kids play in the yard. We want to make sure that we at least have at least one hand on the wheel while all that happens.
Yeah, I mean, Boris, wasn't the first time I met you at a Sibos, right? The Swift conference?
No, I don't think so. At the Swift conference?
Yeah, at Sibos, right? Like 2017 or something.
No, I don't think so.
You weren't at the Geneva one? I thought you were.
No.
Just another handsome fellow.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's the question I had there.
Yeah, no. It's like I didn't think that the future of the blockchain payments it was anything that. I mean, the discussion was very high level. They were doing some experiments and thinking that the merchants might push it along, but yeah, it didn't look like.
I mean, these are smart cats, and so I must be missing something. I would love somebody to educate me on why this isn't just a dumb idea.
Next week on the Baseline Show, All John's Answers Questions by Mike Cagney.
All John's Answers Question. I like that. I like the way you put that.
Do you think? Okay, yeah, I have my It doesn't matter. Yeah. So I'll proceed to why everybody needs a crypto strategy. I mean, what the discussion here was that Silvergate is a large bank on the West Coast apparently, and they deal with they do a lot of crypto work. They do what the thought was here that at some point I'm sorry. You know what? The stable coins, right? The stable coins, the fiat-backed stable coin will get regulated, that was kind of the thought here, and there was going to be a lot more traction on that. There were like a few discussions on that it's relatively probably in the near future the stable coin will be regulated, so that was kind of the big thing coming out here. Also, Silvergate, as I understand, they are dealing with pretty much every exchange, almost crypto exchanges right now, and they have like a 24/7 operation, so that they allow basically to transfer crypto and basically buy crypto and do the transfers. That's let's see if okay, that's then we had and this is I don't know, I'm not sure if anyone heard about this or like knows a lot about it, maybe probably more than I do, but New Bank, basically the CEO of New Bank, David Bellis, was there, and this was a keynote that he did, and so what he did here, like what they did in a very short period of time, they went from, again, looking at the customers, they went from like 4 million customers to 50 million customers in less than 4 years. And the way he described his business, it was he very much simplified, made it very simple for starting with loans and deposits and for like individual customers, and basically created like the largest digital bank in the world, as I understand. And that was a very lively discussion, like huge success there that he described, and quite a few obstacles in Brazil that he had to overcome, but he was able to build it in a very short period, like relatively short period of time, grow to 50 million customers, which is pretty big. I mean, it's pretty huge compared to even like US banks. Okay, now I have some notes. I want to. Okay. So another like large topic, which I don't think I mentioned earlier, was buy now, pay later, which is very big apparently in the fintech industry, and multiple companies like financial institutions did get into it, and what they do basically, they work with, again, this is small businesses, and I also reached out to Fundbox CEO here. Actually, I reached out to Fundbox CEO and Jakob Martin also here, who is like kind of more on the technology side. But what they do, they work with small businesses, and they provide on-demand loans for various needs to the small businesses. They also they do get quite a bit of detailed information on the small businesses before they provide the loans. But it looks to be like a huge growing business at the point where Visa announced like a partnership with Fundbox right there at the conference, and they said Visa seems like strongly believe that in like small businesses, entrepreneurships, and building that network, or like expanding like loans to small businesses and those loans could be like a couple of thousand. So I think they go up to $250,000. So I thought that potentially there also the baseline protocol could provide some opportunities, because you do need they're looking at pretty much real-time understanding of how the business performs on a almost like, they basically said real-time perspective, because there was a lot of I guess, activity for small businesses, and there was quite a bit of risk. So also on TransUnion, they was there, and they said they're building like a specific, the building for buy now, pay later, like clients, they're building like a separate database to be able to actually capture the required details of these customers and their business performance and things like that. So they can evaluate the credit worthiness in a different way probably than what's being done today. So that's I think that's about it.
I'd love to be able to see, a personal, almost like a next generation, a 1Password type of a vault where you could provide attestations about your creditworthiness. Again, proofs under zero knowledge to say, yes, I have control of that information. I have the results of whatever creditworthiness requirements are stipulated, and I'm able to attest to my creditworthiness directly from my own.
That was a huge topic there. Although zero knowledge didn't come up as a, no one brought up the word of zero knowledge.
You'd want that, right? Because you'd want high security on the thing.
Yes,
you wouldn't want any access, and you wouldn't want to have to allow or subject users to deciding when and when they shouldn't provide clear text data to somebody in order to prove that they're creditworthy. Also, you need confirmation, right? It's, I can put a bunch of data in my 1Password that's false, that says that, these banks and these other institutions consider me creditworthy and I've paid my bills and yada, yada, but it could all be fake data, right? You need the proof of consistency. You need that proof that the other guy would agree if we went and called him.
All right.
Yeah, that's why self-attestation doesn't quite, again, a lot of people are like, your word isn't enough.
No, you need your word baselined and then you're just providing the proof that says, I can prove to you that my score is above X.
Right.
Based on these, or actually it'd be a bunch of scores, right? Say that there's 25 criteria or 25 different things. Each of those scores is above your level of requirement. And I'm not giving you the data to prove it.
All right.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those where self-attestation on that, I don't.
No, it's got to be baselined with the other institutions, right? You got to say, yes, I paid my bills, and and my data is baselined with the bank, and that way, the bank doesn't have to send. I don't have to do an API call to the bank. I don't have to call the bank. The bank doesn't have to send any data. I don't have to send any data, but Boris is going to give me a loan.
Right.
And I would think Boris would want to trust but verify.
Hey, Boris, can you give me a loan, by the way? I just need 25 million. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Right.
I can attest to you that I will pay it back someday.
Right.
I can send you my proof.
And I have a baseline proof that I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was, to me, it looked like a lot of scenarios of that type where at this point there was just a lot of like, even with the fintechs, although they're technically savvy but it was a lot of APIs sending a lot of data that probably doesn't need to go back and forth, because it didn't, to me, it didn't look like it was sustainable, because you could only, especially since you're dealing with individual clients or like small businesses, it's not like you're dealing like a bank deals maybe with 3 clients when they large clients. Here you're looking at probably like, not probably, you're looking at hundreds, thousands, potentially millions of clients that you want, small businesses that you want to interact and basically give them out loans, because some of the scenarios they're looking at, they would like to be real-time understanding of a small business so they can provide them a loan ahead of the before they actually know it. If they know that the small business needs to pay salaries on a Monday, and they know that they don't have it, I mean, they will not be able to meet that or something of that type, they will basically provide them with a loan, and or basically offer them, tell them that we could provide you a loan if you require that. But at the same time, they would need to understand very well financially what the small business is. If they're still selling, if they're still making money or something of that type. Yeah, but that was I mean, that was a theme that was, yeah, buy now, pay later. I mean, that was a theme across like a few multiple like fireside chats.
And Boris, going back to the talk about how every company needs was it risk management office or?
Yeah, they've discussed risk management, but my understanding of risk management, you do need for that. I think again, you don't need necessarily the identity, but you do need. I don't know. I would think like you need detailed data probably to be able to risk assess the client, but it doesn't have to happen on a daily basis. Maybe you do it once or yeah. I mean that was like tricky. I mean, yeah, it was. They yeah. I'm not sure how this fits into potentially like what will like the baseline protocol, because you need to have quite a few details, at least when maybe you onboard the client originally, or maybe you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of an effort that we're doing in the enablement group. And I was just about to pass it over to you, Mark Haddle. We've been talking all about risk managers and risk officers and how the baseline protocol should be appealing to those areas. But go ahead.
Me or Boris?
You, Mark.
Oh, okay. Risk management. Okay, when you sit there and you want to look at it, by two different, kind of areas of focus. Number one is going to be checking to identify and quantify process risk. We've seen a lot of, like within the blockchain space, everybody talks about the big DAO hack that caused the first fork of Ethereum. And all of that could have been prevented had someone taken a risk approach to it, to where, if you could, and they found out, enterprising hackers figured they could use a recursive call function and they could steal tokens. And that was a risk management, protocol or ideology or framework that was largely either ignored or, they didn't know anything about it. And so, risk management is also put it through the paces to say, how can this process, how is it affected by changing conditions, or how could somebody exploit the process, for other ends? And that's what they wound up doing. I mean, they didn't really sandbox it as thoroughly as possible. And so when you start looking at risk management, you want to start to say, hey, you want to be able to make sure that you have minimized your exposure to something that could go wrong. Now, when you look at it, the second aspect of it is in governance, risk, and reporting. You always see GRC always lumped together because a lot of that is going to have a reporting function, and the risk management function is probably the most appropriate for that because it is interdisciplinary, cross-functional, and enterprise-wide. So many of that is those duties are falling to the chief risk officer to make sure that the compliance is fully adhered to. But when you start looking at some of the environmental and operational risk within banking, like Boris was talking about, you can do the risk management aspect of it, the risk assessment, but you need to monitor those to look for what we used to call a MAC, a material adverse change. Everybody, we would see this really with the first economic downturn within the construction space, to where a lot of the money dried up. and there was work that was still, set to be completed and then ultimately paid for, but if the money was no longer there, that was a material adverse change to the lender, because that affected the borrower's ability to pay. So risk management is really a philosophy as well as a practice, and you're not only applying it to business type processes, but you're also doing it to when it comes to the build, to say, okay, how is this going to work and where is it vulnerable? How could somebody, let's step back and say, somebody that doesn't know anything about it but wants to exploit it, maybe a shortcoming, maybe a process lag time. Early on, a lot of hackers, were, trying to hack Bitcoin because they said it took, in that time between a transaction to close and it be committed to a block, was 10 to 12 minutes at the time. And so that's an eternity to where you could get in and, maybe mess with things. That's why we have gas, because you don't have, that was a risk management tool to stave off DDoS attacks. By making it computationally costly. Yes, you can still do it, but it's going to be impractical for you, and you're going to go and look elsewhere for something that's going to be an easier target. So that's why I commonly say risk management is a philosophy, and it's not just, some people think it's just insurance. And I'm like, no, it's a way of actually looking at how does this work? Where does it break? Where are the choke points? How does it interact with other processes or products? What happens if the temperature drops, 20 degrees, within 5 minutes? What are some of the consequences of that? And have you really, thought about that and made, efforts to at least mitigate that? So that's my soapbox on risk management. It's in the middle of everything, just like law and risk management, and law and insurance or risk management, go hand in glove. So it's in the middle of everything.
But if everything were NFTs and on the blockchain, then there would be no risk and no badness. So that's
But you see, right now you're starting to see, using it as an example, within NFTs, you have a lot of people that are coming out there that really haven't considered the risk management aspects of it. So if you are minting an NFT on a piece of artwork or just whatever medium or whatever that you don't own the intellectual property to, you have created a breach of either law.
I was thinking more in terms of like what EY does with enterprise NFTs, right? Like pallets and logistics and stuff like that. You're clearly you own this stuff,
right?
But you're recording it all on blockchains.
Well, but and again, another risk management approach. Yes, clearly you own it, and clearly you already have an established relationship with some lender somewhere. So why do you need to tokenize a digital asset that you can then shop into a marketplace? Why would you need to? I mean, you could, but where would the need be? I mean, it's not really solving.
Address here's the question. You've got Ariba, you've got all these other organizations that are creating portals all over the place. Is the pain of using portals bad enough to take it up a level, or is this a 20-year journey? Right. I mean, because that's how you deal with it right now, right? Is I need to be sure that our data is consistent. So I'm going to make you type it into my thing, and then we're going to use that as the single source of truth. And if I'm more powerful than you, you're going to do that. If I'm Lockheed and you're a supplier, or if I'm Boeing, or if I'm Walmart or what have you, you're going to go to my portal and you're going to put your data in, and now I've got my cloud or my infrastructure tracking your stuff and doing what we need to do. And right now that seems to be state of the art. I mean, that seems to be, there's a lot of people not even doing that yet. And we haven't hit the top of that activity list.
But it's still a cost benefit, type analysis. I mean, to say, yes, I can do this, and it's not perfect. And yes, it's clunky or wonky, or, it might even be risky, but I don't have another viable alternative or any other viable.
when the web came up, it was, hey, anybody can put up a billboard. And that's really, people forget this. The web was anybody can put up a billboard. It was billboards, electronic billboards was the web. Electronic billboards. And anybody could put one up, and it was cheap and easy. Does anybody, if the Internet of Transactions is, is anybody going to put up their own e-commerce system, or anybody going to put up their own interop with their suppliers and buyers?
They will sure try.
But it ain't as simple as putting a little piece of HTML up on the internet.
But if I can find some sucker to pay me a ton of money to do that, yeah, I'm going to do it until I get found out. That's what I'm seeing, in the first wave of NFTs and stuff, where I read an article somewhere where somebody wanted to mint an NFT of the Mona Lisa, and I'm like, we know it's not, we know where the Mona Lisa, there's only one of them, we know where it is, and yes, somebody smeared a bunch of junk on it this week earlier, somebody to protest climate change, but we know it's not yours, but you're now minting it and you're trying to sell it. That's another risk thing, to where, and Da Vinci's work is in the public domain, but at the same time, you're probably going to have some sucker that will say, hey, I just bought an NFT of the Mona Lisa. Isn't that cool? I'm still, so like the guy that did, that bought Jack Dorsey's first tweet, for $2.3 million or something like that. He's trying to sell it on OpenSea, and I think the bidding has largely halted at around $46,000. So, he's going to make a small fortune by starting with a big one.
Boris, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you tell anybody about the ZK bond circuit work that you did with Louise there at FinTech?
No. What was interesting, there were no investment banking talk at all. This was all very little investment banking. This was all customer, checking, deposits, loans, small business. I didn't come across anyone that's where I see data and information synchronization is gonna. I feel like a lot of these fintechs, they'll just fall over. A bank is gonna buy them with their clients. It's just when they describe to me getting all the data, collecting all the data from the small businesses and on a weekly, daily basis, it's not sustainable. I mean, I can only imagine how much processing they are doing locally in order to understand what's going on there, what it will get or received or anything of that. Even for a large bank, it would be very challenging to get all this data and actually look at all these clients, and especially the small businesses. So it's that's what I. But there was I haven't talked to anyone. I mean, there was really no opportunity. I could. There wasn't really anyone I could. At least I came across that I could talk to, and they would get a meaningful conversation there.
I gotcha.
But it's a good point you're bringing up, because there is I think a weekly, I'm not sure, maybe monthly something. There is a blockchain Wall Street meetup that happens, and I think they started doing it live now, live. Maybe I should attend and discuss it there, bring it up. But no, here I didn't bring it up at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to attend all of these sessions and get new ideas for use cases and just how to properly pitch the baseline protocol to different personas. Super excited to get these companies involved in the community and use your efforts for our work that we're doing. Thank you so much, Boris, for joining us on the show today. And we hope to have you on frequently.
Yes.
Thank you all for watching, and thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Come back next week. We got more questions for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.